I'm delighted to be here and present you about what we think are the most important trends on the internet today. Some trends that shape the work of marketeers and that are changing our businesses. But before to do that, what I would like to do is to remind us about some numbers, about the magnitude of what we are going through. Today, 1.7 billion people are connected to the internet. It's about 25% of global population, and it's still growing at an incredible pace. And those are the ones connected via a PC. Okay. What are they doing? 3.6 billion people, 3.6 billion online searches are done every day on Google. And 20% of those searches are searches we have not seen in the last 3 months. 400 million people are today Facebook users, active Facebook users. Last year, 200 million. This number is growing incredibly fast, and it's about today 25% of the total of the people that use the internet. YouTube, 20 million, 20 hours, 20 million, with those numbers, confusing hours and millions is becoming. 20 hours are uploaded on YouTube every minute. Last year, it was 10 hours. So it's moving incredibly fast, incredibly fast. And, it's very difficult to assess how things change, how it impacts yourself, your work, your life, when you are in the middle of a turmoil. Thomas Jefferson, which has been the 3rd US president, said that every generation needs a revolution. Well, I guess we are lucky, because we've got 2 of them, the internet and mobile, all together, and changing our lives at the same time. Now, if you look at information revolution in the last 100 years, you'll realize that all of the information revolutions followed a similar set of stages. The first stage is the technology. One day a technology arrives, and this technology changes what you can do. Then content arrives. People start putting content, like it happened on TV, it's happening today on the internet. And other people arrive, and content and people interact. And then you start to try to make money. And as you speak of information, of media, money in general is a lot about advertising. And what happens is that advertising takes a lot of time to evolve. I'll give examples during my presentation, but clearly, I think we are today only at the beginning of the types of advertising that we can see on the internet, and specifically on mobile. All that is changing, and all those stages are interacting with one another. If you look at the speed of evolution, do you know how much time it took to radio to reach 50 million users? 50 million users for radio? Anyone in the room has an idea? It took 37 years. Do you have an idea of how many years it took to TV to reach 50 million users? Anyone? About 15 years. Cable TV took 6 years. The internet took 3 years. So this gives an idea of the evolution of the usage of media and of the speed, right? Now, if you look at what's happening, we all feel that somehow globalization is touching our culture and changing our lives. We are Spanish, we are Italian like me, we can be French, American, whatever. We all feel somehow this is changing our culture. Well, if you look at facts and you look at the way it works, specifically on search, you realize that search is a fantastic media to protect the culture and to allow each of us to express itself and have his expression in front of the world. One of the things that surprised me the most about Google, I mean Google only since 6 months, by the way, so a short time, is that if you look at the toolbar, there is an area where you can translate any website in any language, and there are 100 languages, and you can translate any website in your language and look at it. People start using that. Imagine what it means for local culture, for the social value of all that. Now, if you look at the internet and think at that and all the content that can be put in place, I think we can fairly say that there has been 3 stages of evolution. The first stage has been the brochureware. 10 years ago, for the ones which were already working on the internet, like I was, what we were doing was we took the content about our products, about our company, the address, the phone number, some stuff, and we just put that on the internet. There was no interaction with customers, no interaction with other partners. The website was some sort of static. Yes, maybe you had some video, but it was sort of a brochureware. Then two tendencies occurred, which really made an important change. I think that those two tendencies are somehow parallel. One is the e-commerce. Yes, when you talk of e-commerce, of course, the big change it does is that you use the internet to sell, so you need the full of your company to follow, right? Because you need the logistics, you need to sync with your warehouse, you need to make sure that the products go somewhere. So it's not only about presenting yourself, it's about something dynamic. You need to interconnect with partners, you need to have payment systems. So it's a more complex thing than only having a brochure on the web, and there is lots of interaction in it. Now, there are some numbers I want to share with you. Do you have an idea of how much of the retails spent in Europe are today spent online? In Spain, it's about 1%. And I'm very ashamed because you beat Italy. Italy is at 0.8%. Life is life. If you go a bit more north and you go to France, France is about 4.9%. This is last year. This is the spend in 2009. And actually, I don't even know if it's not a bit too prudent, because these calculations were done in January and maybe Christmas was not fully calculated yet. Anyhow, if you go to Germany, it's 6.9%. And if you go to UK, it's 9.5%. UK alone is 30% of the spend, of the spend done on the internet in Europe. And if you add UK, Germany, and France, you reach 70% of the spend. If you go 1 year behind, it was not half of that, but I think it was between 35 to 40% less. So imagine the speed. And what happened last year, I think, is that finally the different dots in companies that are needed to be able to serve people well on the internet in terms of sales are going and working together more holistically. This is a big change, and it happened somehow not from one day to another, but from a moment where everything is ready, people start really to use it, and it starts really to work. So that's a big change. The other stage is the platform for brand engagement. What happens here? If you look at 5 years ago, there was no Facebook, there was no social media or ego web, or whatever you want to call it, or web 2.0. Anyway, people weren't interacting very much. Now on websites you do interact. You ask people, you can ask information on yourself via the web, you can give information, you can exchange, you can interact, and this is a big change for brands, because brands evolve. In the past, if I was the marketing manager of a company, I decided which one were the attributes of my brand. And those attributes somehow were something I wanted to control. Today, you can't do that the same way. I'll have videos later. I don't have that one because I don't, but I should have. If you go on YouTube, you'll see some videos about Coca-Cola and the Mentos, right? I didn't put it because everybody knows that. But what staggers me on that video, what I think interesting, is not so much that the Coke explodes with the Mentos, but the fact that Coke at the beginning said, shall we sue them? Shall we do something against those people which are using our brand like something you play with? And then, somebody at Coca-Cola decided that the best thing to do was to surf the wave, to ride it, and somehow to accept it and say, hey, they are speaking of Coke. Coke is moving, Coke is becoming younger, and let's leave it and let's surf on it. Let's interact, let's use that interaction. Now, all of you, or most of you, are in marketing, are in companies. At which stage are you? In which stage of the evolution are you? And is it the stage which really fits you? Nothing wrong about brochureware, but is it enough? What I want to say in some extent is that now we have no excuses on the internet. We have all the necessary tools to use it in an adult way. If I make a comparison, with my daughter. Actually, she called me just today because she decided that instead of studying in Paris, she wants to study in Milan, and yesterday it was studying in Toulouse, and she changes her mind very often. I love her. It's difficult to follow her, and I make a parallel with the internet. We lived 10 years where it was so difficult to understand. Emotions that we had in front of the internet were mixed with rational aspects, and the both made it difficult for any of us to understand how we should change our business and the way we work. Now, we have no excuses. Technology is ready. People use it. Usage is very high. And economical models are clear. We can sell on the internet, we can defend the brand, we have an advertising model that can work. There are lots of things we can do if we accept the media. This is true for everybody. You see, even in press, where lots of big companies are suffering, lots of small ones are finding the ways to make significant amount of money and to compete. Yes, sometimes, the internet is making big changes because it's changing the relationship between businesses. So many big businesses suffer because it changes established positions, but lots of small ones blur and grow. You know, most of the customers of Google are small and medium companies. But another revolution is on the way. And that one, I know, I am in Spain, we all love phones, and you'll tell me, Carlo, we heard people coming on stages like you for 10 years and telling us, it's coming on mobile, and it's not coming. Okay. Actually, I have to say, I think that this time is coming and that we have the numbers to see that it is. You know, first of all, 4.6 billion people have a phone in the world. That's about 2.5 more people that use the internet. Second thing, 39% in Europe of the phones are connected to 3G. You know? And when people have a phone on 3G, they use it. You know, we see now that in search, about 7.5 to 9% of searches are done with phones, and that people which have a phone in their hand do 30% of the searches with the phone, on local. Whether on the fixed, you don't search for local that much on the phone. So people change their habits and change their ways. If you look now at smartphones, the numbers I'll give you surprised me. And I've asked, together with my teams, we've checked those numbers 6 times because I didn't want to believe them. And I said, don't send me to Spain to say those numbers if they are false because I look like an idiot. And you know, I try to avoid that. But it appears that those numbers are true. 23% of the handsets sold in Europe, meaning the countries I told you before, in 2009 were smartphones. In Spain, and if there is somebody in the room who knows, tell me, in Spain, last year, second half of the year, okay, 23% of the mobile phones in use would be smartphones. In Italy, this time we beat you, it's 28%. But the telefonino is sort of nearly sexual things for the Italians, so they spend a lot of money on it. This is the way we are done. In France, it's smaller. In France, it's 11. In Germany, it's 11. In UK, I think it's 12. By the way, if you look at the time phones are replaced, and I don't want to go into that too long because it would be long, I think we can say that today it's a mass phenomenon, and in 2 or 3 years, it will be the normality. All that was basically started by the iPhone, but it's continuing today with Android, with the open platforms, and with all the phones which are coming out. And it's a very important tendency. However, if we think to mobility, we must say that somehow it's still something that is in infancy. We don't know very much how advertising will work on it. The payment systems are starting. There are new software which are coming up. But it's a little bit like my daughter. Fascinating, lovable, but unpredictable. It will come to adulthood and things will be connecting. I think mobile is more in the stage of the content and things coming up ready with advertising. Now, what does it mean for marketing? Because you tell me, Carlo, you come here, you give us a lot of numbers, but then what do we do with that? Well, we try to identify 5 tendencies, 5 trends, or let's call them 5 laws that any marketeer has to take into consideration when building his plan. And actually, everybody in the business needs to consider that because you'll need to connect all that together somehow. Let's go to the first one. Users are taking control. What does this mean? This advertisement was done by an Israeli mobile company. And it's the only advertisement about Google I'm putting today. Okay? I'm not here to advertise for Google. But this tells you something. It tells you that whenever people today want to know something, the normal reaction is to search. So if you make an advertisement on TV, 1 hour later, and we see that from numbers that I'm showing you later, people go on TV. Sorry, go on search. And they search for it. But it means also another thing for marketeers. It means that if I'm searching on things, I'm having information. If I'm having information, I'm going to use that information. And you, as a marketeer, need to consider that that's information into my hand. So what's the consequence of that? For me, the consequence is the second law. It's transparency. There is no choice, you know. We are all naked, one in front of the other. Like at the airport, when you want to take a plane now, they look at you naked. Okay, that's life. But I mean, we are all, we can't hide anymore. There is no way you can hide yourself, you can hide your business, you can hide your values, the way you work. I'll give you two examples. One example is about Jeff Jarvis. Jeff Jarvis is a very famous blogger, and this guy bought a Dell PC. And he was very pissed with Dell, because the PC didn't work, and he was calling Dell, and they didn't answer, he had problems. And he started blogging on it. And that thing picked up, and picked up, and picked up, and Dell was in trouble. Then Michael Dell decided to ride the wave, decided to open a blog, he decided to interact with Jarvis. Jarvis became his best advocate, and Dell became, after a couple of years, what you all know in terms of success on sales of PCs on the internet. Okay. That's an important thing, because that's changing the way brands are managed. You have to manage your brand with interaction. You have to manage it on the web. That's a significant change. Everything is localized down to you. Let's spend just a minute on that. When you start going around the city with a mobile phone, or with a smartphone to be precise, you look for places, you look for maps, and this gives a lot of new possibilities. But your mentality is local. So if I'm in front of my PC, I'll be more in a mentality like, I want to analyze things, I want to understand things. If I'm on the phone, I'll be more in the mentality, I want to act, I want to move, and I want it here, I want it now, I want it local. Those things will influence ourselves. And I have an example to share with you here, which is this one. Liar is a small company, I think developed in the Netherlands. What you see behind me is a channel in Amsterdam, the way it normally is, right? It's a channel, you see the channel, you see the buildings. What we call reality. Liar developed a software that they call enhanced reality, no, augmented reality, apologies. What do they do is that they put layers on top of what you can see. So for example, you want to purchase a house, they'll tell you which ones are on sales. You want to find a shop, they'll tell you where it is. You want to know what there is in a shop, they'll tell you what it is. Liars, you know, you can put any liar you want, and there are already 300 liars on this part in Amsterdam developed, and then we look and pick them up. Why is that important? Imagine what you can do with it. You can do a contest. You can use that to send people to a shop, telling them what it is. You can interact with people when they are home, and then use the mobile phone to make them do what you told you wanted them to do when you were on the internet on the fixed part. And actually, you know, fixed and mobile, when you look at this, begin to blur. You know, it's beginning to merge. Those tendencies are important because they are changing the way we interact with the internet. But you'll tell me, yeah, Liar is nice, but it's in Amsterdam, and you know, 300 layers in Amsterdam. Well, of course, scalability matters. Scalability is important in many ways. Scalability is important because if you use technology appropriately, your business model can be easier. Let's take Facebook. I think we have people from Facebook here in the room. And if I'm not wrong, I think Facebook is now translated in something like 75 languages or even more, sorry, but a lot of languages. And it's done by the people in the country. You know, in Spain, it was translated over, I think, 4 weeks by I don't know how many people, but it was translated in 4 weeks. In France, I don't know, they probably use more people, they translated it in a week, maybe it's a week later. I mean, but they are using people to work with them. Twitter is the same story. Use the power of the people and the technology. Create an infrastructure that allows you to use the power of the people. Another example of scalability is, look, if you are a marketeer, normally 3 things matter for you. 1, the engagement. You want people to engage with you. So message must be engaging. 2, you want to target. You know, if I'm selling jamon, I want Javier, because I know Javier likes jamon. So I mean, I'm looking for interactions with people which have certain characteristics. Javier is a bad example, apologies. But what I mean is, you target precisely social demographics. And the third thing you want, somehow, okay, is measurability. You want to be able to measure that and measure the result. Those 3 things are now possible on the internet very easily, and I will show it to you in a few minutes. Let's start with engagement. This movie is from Jean-Arthus Bertrand. It's a movie about the environment. Very engaging. Environment is important for us. We all think that environment is an issue. This film was put on the web in June last year, at the same time in 14 countries. It was there only for a week because then they wanted to sell it as a DVD. It was viewed by more than 1.5 million people on the first day and by 10 million people in 7 or 9 days. Yes, the message is engaging. Clearly, the message helped to do that. But if you imagine the cost of doing that and the result of it, it's incredible what you can do with an amount of money that only 3 years ago was impossible. And simultaneously and in many, many countries. One was done using the power of YouTube. But look at this second one.
Let's observe the effect of Evian on
Enjoy the ad, then I'll tell you about it. Actually, I can speak a little bit now.
Come on, sit here. Hop, you hit it to the hip, hip, hop, you don't stop, the rocket to the bang, bang, boogie, sit up, jump, the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat.
Now what you hear is not a test, I'm rocking to the beat, and me, the groove, and my friends.
I leave it because I like it. It's sort of a fun ad, right? Okay, we have no time to go to the end, and you can see the end on YouTube. What are the important things on this ad? When the marketing head of Evian, Danone, wanted to put this ad, he wanted a viral effect to start. First of all, even in virality, you need to kick it off. So he bought some home pages, 5 home pages, just to kick off the viral effect. And he targeted 14 countries. It was viewed in a sort of 120 countries, and he wanted to achieve 2 million unique visitors. Sorry, 2 million viewers, yes. We achieved 50 million over 7 months, 50 million. Time said that this was the most viewed advertisement last year. Not only Time, but Time also gave it an award as the best advertisement on TV. The Guinness Book of Records now has this ad as the most viewed ad in the full history of advertising. And all that was kicked off with 5 pages, 2 days on TV, and YouTube for 14 countries. Scale and financial scalability go together. Clearly, the message is adapted to the web because you can interact, it's fun, and you can interact with it. And in a minute, we'll talk about measurability. This is the part I love the most because I started as an accountant, then I went into marketing, and when I was an accountant, I felt I was a serious guy being precise and working with numbers. When you become a marketeer, people tend to say, yeah, you spend half in advertising, $1, you never know which half is useful. Now, you know which one is useful. Now you've got the tools. At Google, we have developed a tool called Insight for Search. That tool, you just type Insight for Search on the web and you get into it. You don't need to be a Google employee, and you don't need to pay to use that. Everybody can use it. And it's extremely powerful. Just to give you 2 examples of the power of that thing. Imagine you want to go on diet. The first graphic tells you, in France, what happens, how many people look for diets during the year. And you see there is a peak about in May, because in July, we all go to the beach, and we want to be thin. So actually, I have to start very early. I know I can't wait for May, so I will not be in the peak. But anyway, this is an information that marketers can use. It's a very simple example, but I couldn't bring in examples about companies, because I think it would have been difficult. But actually, it's information you can use. You know the amounts, you know the peak, you know how it works. If you go to the UK, you'll see that there are 3 peaks for the same things on diet. That's an important information, because you know that you sell in the UK 3 times during the year. They eat a lot at Christmas, seems to be, because there is a peak going down after Christmas, so they want to go on diet. And then, I don't know why, around March, yeah, because probably they go on the beach earlier, right, or something like this. And then again, the same peak than in France. That's important information. And you have that. You can also compare brands. You can compare which keywords matter, which grow faster. You can look at which keywords people use according to topics. It's a very important tool. But let's now, you remember the advertisement we've just seen on Evian, right? Look at what we can know on that. It's possible to know how many people watched it every day, at which time of the day. That's important. If you decide to push for something, you know when you can push. You know who, in terms of demographics. Was it watched by people which are of which age? 13 to 17, more than 56, 45 to 54. And you have that information per area. Here you see countries because I couldn't put a map with areas. But for example, if you go to Spain, we know which area those people from Spain come from when they watch the ad. That's an important element. Where did they love it? How? And this is the coolest tool of all for me, the hotspots, which means that We track what happens when people watch the ad, and we know when they leave. So for example, I hate when the baby is doing that, I switch off, or it's too long, or I don't like it at the time. And by merging the information we get from people connecting and disconnecting with the information we have above, and with the information people give, because they blog on the ad and they can blog on the ad on the tool, we know a lot of things. So we can use, for example, the internet to test an ad. We can make polls. We can analyze trends. We have a lot of information that we can use. Last information we have on that example is that we know where the people come from. Do they come from Facebook? From Viral? From embedded players? Where do they come from? And also this is important to understand which kind of technology to use and how to make it work. All those information are freely available to everyone. That's an important change. That's an important trend. That's something that can help us to spend our money better and to use the internet in a clever way. Last element, all communication is personal. Here I want to give an example which is, I think, very telling. You remember the Obama elections last year, and CNBC, like many TVs, wanted people to go to vote. What they were scared of is that if people didn't go to vote, McCain would have won the elections. And CNBC decided to create a small video where you can put the name of someone, and this person will be blamed and shamed in front of the whole country because of him, McCain has won. Look at the video. In this case, they've put my name in it. It's a friend who put my name and sent it to me. I don't know if it's a friend. Look at it. You'll see. There is no audio.
Barack Obama by a single vote.
We sure showed them what a comeback looks like.
For many, shock soon turned to outrage as the New York Times revealed the identity of the particular non-voter responsible for Obama's loss. In just a few short days, this private citizen has become a national pariah.
I am a loser.
Fearing retribution, local police took the non-voter into protective custody yesterday at City Hall. Disgruntled citizens have been demonstrating ever since.
You're supposed to Barack the vote. But what happened? The vote didn't even get Baracked.
I waited in line 5 hours to vote with an arthritic hip, and this mother lazy couldn't get out of bed in time to vote.
International reaction has been just as intense, even in some of the most remote locations.
यो मेरो अनुभवमा यो 2-4 सालभन्दा अहिले 5वटा पक्रिएको थियो.
However, the non-voter has become a hero to a small sliver of the population.
I thank you for your service. I thank you for what you...
Okay. What I'm trying to say here is that you can use the internet to prepare messages which can really be targeted to people and really involve them. Look at this other example, Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut
brought to you by Pizza Hut.
Wants to sell pizza, right?
iPhone
So they put
and
on
used it to make
YouTube,
ordering pizza, pasta, and wings.
sorry, on an
easy,
iPhone in that
fast,
case,
and fun.
a very
you can drag
small
it, tap
tool
it, pinch
that
it,
allows you
stretch it,
to
tilt
order
it,
your pizza.
shake it,
You make it
play
small, you make
order
it big,
and enjoy it.
you put toppings on
the Pizza
it,
Hut app is a
then you,
revolution in mobile ordering.
you just
Now let's
order the
take a
pizza
look
and
at
it
how you order
arrives.
pizza with the
They
Pizza
say
Hut.
that they sold more
Are you
than $1
ready?
million of pizza with this tool after
Trust
3 months.
and tap to choose your
Anyhow,
favorite.
it's engaging, it's interactive,
Next, pick a size.
it's
You
measurable.
can pinch it to make it smaller.
And it is scalable because people download it alone. More than I think 350,000 people
Or
downloaded
stretch it
it.
to make it bigger.
So actually, the $1 million is believable. Each person orders 3 pizzas, more or less.
Now you're ready for toppings.
So those changes are important changes, and a lot of changes are still to come. This is my last example, and it's one I really like. Let's talk about advertising. If you imagine all the advertising on the web today, imagine Google. Even the snippets we have. The small words that people use now for the announcement, all that is still in its infancy. It still has to evolve. And let's go back 50 years from now. We are in 1959, 10 years after the launch of TV. And this was the ad by Mattel for the Barbie. A radio jingle, 10 years after the launch of TV. A radio jingle, and the guy coming up, you'll see here, he's coming with his hand, moving the Barbie. Right? What I'm trying to say here is that if we use the 5 trends we discussed, if we really try to understand how to master them, advertisement has still a long way to go. And of course, because advertisement will be more relevant, because it will be more targetable, because it will bring more results to people that you can measure, prices over time will go up. I don't think there is much point in complaining now about the fact that advertisement on the web are sometimes paid less than in other places. It's because we have, as marketeers, to connect the dots and to make sure that we use all the trends in a way that's really relevant and adapted to the media. That's why I say that, to me, digital marketing is dead. It's like electricity. You don't talk about electricity, you talk about the usages of electricity. Today, digital marketing is marketing. All the common sense we have adopted offline can be used online. Those 5 trends are what changes it. But if we adopt those 5 trends properly, and if we realize that online and offline are blurring, we'll see that there is a lot of opportunities for each of us to evolve and make things change. Even now, online, offline, difficult to distinguish. If I am on my PC and I'm watching TV on the PC, am I online or am I offline? If I'm watching a TV on my mobile phone with Wi-Fi, am I online if it's Wi-Fi, not online if it's not Wi-Fi? Does it still make sense to make that distinction in marketing? I think it does not. I think we are at the beginning of a very important change in culture and in the ability for us to impact, and I think we've got all the tools to do it. Thank you very much.
Ahora, si alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta a Carlo, se acercan el micrófono.
Any question?
Any question?
Please have some questions, because if there are no questions, it always feels like things were unclear. So do me a favor, ask me some questions, whatever you want.
¿Alguna pregunta, por favor?
Yes. Sorry.
What?
Then there is sir there. Yes. You want to start? Okay. As you wish. As you wish. I think we have some time for questions, so I'm delighted to answer. I'll do my best.
Short question.
Yes.
No, I'm just, one thing about Google is that most of your revenue still comes from one...
Sorry, I can't hear you. Apologies.
Hello?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, just one thing about Google is that most of your revenue still comes from one product.
Most of the revenues come from?
That most of your revenue in this point still comes from one product. Is that something you talk about very much internally, and is there...
That the revenues come from one product only, you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what...
well,
you can change the definition of what the product is, but
I think,
mainly
yeah.
AdWords.
First of all,
this isn't an aggressive. This is a sort of a comment. I'm interested to see whether there's much debate internally about this, because there certainly is debate externally about this.
Okay. First of all, it's a hell of a product. It's a product that works very well and serves multiple types of customers. We don't have much debate internally in Google on revenue. The debate we have usually is on what we can do for consumers. So we talked a lot about YouTube and how YouTube can be used, and now it's becoming big because people use it much. The scale is such that it's really becoming important. On Android, we are trying to understand how people can use it better, and then the money comes after. If I understand Google well, I think that Google is a company that tries to focus on what matters for consumers and then thinks that money comes after. It's like when I always make a parallel between that and when I was a small boy. My father always told me, Carlo, don't go for the money, go for the work, the money will come after. I think this is the mentality at Google. And if you look at what happens now with enterprise, I mean, the software we propose to enterprises, with the mobility, with YouTube, and I think the company in some years will have different sources of revenue, yes. I'm sure it will come, and it is starting, and it will be very interesting to watch and participate to.
Hi. When you talk about numbers and you present numbers from Spain and about the mobile, I'm sure that you have, or you know that in Greece, on Russia, the numbers of the penetration of mobile is higher, it's becoming higher. I would like to know, why do you think that, and is it something related to culture or what? Because
you speak of mobile or
the penetration. I mean
the penetration of mobile.
Yes, because
I think
that part of that part of Europe is poor than the other part.
Yeah.
Why is?
Well, first of all, I think when you speak of mobile, we have to distinguish between normal mobile phone and smartphones. And the usage is completely different, and mobile phone with 3G is not the same thing that a mobile phone with the rest. In some areas of the world, like Africa, where we are investing and working a lot, mobile is there because fixed telephone never reached a certain level, so it's sort of leapfrog. The mobile is becoming more important because they don't have the fixed line like we have them. In Russia, it's a bit of the same story. Because of the geography and the size of the country, people tend to invest more on mobile than fixed. Usages differ a lot, but they differ a lot, I think, for reasons linked to technology, for reasons to type of phones you have, and I think that somehow this will homogenize more and more. You know, the work we have been doing with Android is to put in the hands of people smartphones which are less expensive than the ones they had before. You'll see models coming all over the earth. More than 40 models should come, which will really democratize that. And where we will have in our hands a tool that we can use with the internet on mobile, then things will change. Okay? And clearly, as you rightly say, and you rightly pointed out, some countries like Greece, like Russia and Eastern countries will have a big part to play in that. Absolutely.
Do you have news about YouTube China?
Look, no, I don't. The only thing we know is that there are discussions with the government in course, and there is nothing more I can do. The suggestion I give to anyone who wants to know about what happens with Google when it's related to policies or things like this is to go on the Google blog. All the information we can give are there, and they're available for anyone who wants to go and see. I cannot say anything much than this, because honestly, I don't know what will happen. I really don't know.
Hi there. We've been hearing a lot about how display advertising is coming up in the world, etc., and how we need to do more in order to create the engagement from the end users with regards to display. Now, most of your products are to do with contextual advertising. So, what is it specifically that Google will do over the next few years to get more into the display world?
To get, sorry?
More into the display advertising world.
Well, I think search is important for Google, but through the GCN and through the work we are doing with the Exchange platform and what we do with DoubleClick, we are trying to develop all the technologies and the supporting infrastructures to allow display advertising to develop more. Targeting sites on one way, allowing people to exchange inventory like we do on the Exchange platforms now. All that will have certainly a very big impact. What I honestly think is that creativity should be more adapted to the internet in advertising. I showed the Barbie ad because this is a strong belief I have personally. I believe that marketeers are not developing the ads enough for the web. We are starting to see first initial things with some mastheads which are successful with some formats, but it still has to be evolved a lot. It has to evolve a lot. I think Google, with its roles in helping people to sell their inventories, with creating networks and with creating the Exchange platforms, will help. But Google is not the internet. The internet is far bigger than Google.
PageRank, for instance.
PageRank.
PageRank, right.
Okay. Look, I think one big difference between Google and other companies is that their services are for free, and they're used by lots of people which don't pay for the service. And in free services, interaction between the companies and the service provider via the web is a normal thing. Our choice is to put the service in the hands of everybody. If then I look at what Google does for the environments it lives in terms of creations of jobs, lots of SMEs use our services to sell. They don't need now big services to sell. They can sell in the world by having a website and using us. If I look at the short time it takes to people to develop new products because they can use search, if I look at the importance in terms of social aspects of the culture we provide from all over the world, the help we give to children to study, and what people can do with Google, I can tell you that I've never been so proud in my life of the company I work for than of Google. I think that our products are changing the world. They are helping people regardless of the amount of money they have, and in a way that makes perfect sense for them. If you speak of advertisers, people that advertise with us pay on the basis of a principle that's very simple. They decide the price, we do not. And if they don't have the result because there is no click-through, they don't pay. So I think this company is inherently very fair. I don't want to talk now about commission, about all, you know, what's happening because of our size and success, and which may be normal, and people that want to control that we're acting in a fair way. But I can tell you that from the internal part, the employees of Google feel they have a big social responsibility. They feel they are doing their best to make sure that what we do is done in a fair way. And we consider and think that our algorithm is something that really is totally independent from any human interaction and that we don't work directly on. So if in our work, sometimes it happens that, you know, there are mistakes, any company does it. But I honestly think that this company is a company that is in good faith and that is doing a lot for the world. And if now I see all what happens, that's my last 10 cents on this, I think we should always remember what Google has done for the world in the last 10 years, what it has given to our children, our mothers, our fathers, ourselves, and what we can do with the level of information and the freedom it gives to everyone, before to talk only about eventual problems that we don't at the moment know whether they exist or not.
Thank you. I'm here. And one of the things you were talking about is the social media and social networks.
Yes.
And Google just launched a few weeks ago the Buzz.
Yes.
And I just wanted to know if if this launch was answering your expectation, and if this is one field that Google wants to be more active to compete with Facebook, Twitter, and so on.
If you look at the evolution of the web, you know, companies which were big 10 years ago are small today. Google is very big now. It didn't exist 10 years ago. Facebook and the rest as well. So yes, we have to be ahead of the new trends and understand and master them. But this is a personal opinion. If I have to be honest, I think that Google at the moment has not completely fully cracked the contribution it has to give to the social web. It's something we are working on. I don't think we, at the moment, have found or defined the killer app we should use.
And if I may add another question for that, how you prepare Google to the day, for example, that Facebook will offer similar or service like Gmail to their users? Because it might happen tomorrow.
Well, first of all, competition is good. So having alternatives is positive. And if those alternatives correspond to what people need and corresponds better to someone and someone else, it's good there are different alternatives in the world. We are not here to try one to do everything and trust everything. That's not Google's mentality. Now I must say that Google is very concentrated at the moment on a couple of things. Now, what we're doing on mobile. We think that web is going mobile and Google has to go mobile quickly. So we are doing lots of efforts for that. And two, softwares. You know, today, any of you can use softwares to write, to calculate, to present, to communicate using Google on the cloud. When people will realize the strength of that and the fact it's free, you know, you realize the power of what Google is proposing. And yes, we were talking rightly, the gentleman asked me about the quality of service. Yes, probably companies that ask a lot of money for the service, for selling a license for a software, you know, put in place a customer service. But if you pay $200, you pretend it. When you have it for free, if you have to have the hassle of interacting with a website, maybe it's worthwhile. Go and look at all those products and things we are developing. I mean, it's only the beginning. So many things happen. On the social aspects, I think we have to improve. We are not good at everything, and if we have to improve, that's a great challenge for us.